Hey, how's it going, guys? Hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to be reviewing the first half of Alan Moore's Saga of the Swamp Thing. So that's volumes or books 1 through 3. So let's get into it. First thing I'm going to do is probably just cover the format of the books. So these are hardcover, which are harder to find nowadays. Basically, the only easy way to get this story is either through the absolute format or through the paperbacks, which are about $26 Canadian each plus tax. You can find those on Amazon. Sometimes they're discounted. So this is the first one right here. As we can see, it's got the sleeve on it. From the award-winning writer of The Watchmen, Alan Moore. Let's read the back quickly. Just quick overview. From 1983 through 1987, a young British writer named Alan Moore revolutionized the American comic book. His groundbreaking tenure on DC Comics' Swamp Thing set new standards for graphic storytelling and touched off a revolution in the medium that is still expanding today. Building on the title's framework of gothic horror, with a remarkably intuitive narrative style and unprecedented depth of characterization, Moore's vision was realized through the hauntingly beautiful artwork of such collaborators as Stephen Bissett, John Totleben, Dan Day, and Rick Veitch. The result is one of comics' most enduring masterpieces. So this hardcover format, when it came out, was going for about 28 Canadian plus tax, but since they're so hard to find now, they don't go for that anymore. Needless to say. So that is the sleeve. The actual book itself, this is probably my favorite just hardcover format book I've gotten, because I just love this Swamp Thing on the front. And I'm kind of sad, for some reason the other volumes don't appear to have that style on it. But it's got this amazing Swamp Thing. You've also got the title here. It's in black, so you can't really see. But, yeah. Saga of the Swamp Thing, Book 1. It's got Totleben, Bissett. Of course, this was when it was in Vertigo. So the paper itself, it's like an older paper, a little bit cheaper. I don't want to say cheap as in poor quality, just it's in that older. It even smells like an old comic book when you open it up, which isn't a bad thing at all. So there are a lot of cool aspects of this first book that I wanted to touch on. This book kind of gives you a solid foundation to who the Swamp Thing or what the Swamp Thing is. It introduces the concept of the Swamp Thing being more than just Alec, being part of the green, as they say. It introduces some pretty popular, I'd say, at least in my opinion, likable characters. Likable not in the sense that they're good people, just in the sense that they're written really well. And it really does kind of set the tone for the rest of the series, at least from what I've seen so far, books 1 through 3. We've got some really interesting characters. It kind of just starts off with, there's another character who basically is also kind of in touch with the green, but he kind of abuses it, and in a way that makes Alec or the Swamp Thing be like, okay, yeah, no, I've got to stop this. There is something wrong with what this guy's doing with green. He's trying to defend it, but as a result, he's actually damaging it. So that's something that I thought was pretty interesting, is just kind of seeing it, and from what I could tell, it was like this character, I believe his name is Woodrew. He got in tune with the green, so basically he connected to the green through the Swamp Thing to get more in touch with it. But from what I can tell, he only got in touch with the rage behind the green. Why are you cutting us down? Why are you destroying us? The darker sides, and he couldn't control that. So it really just kind of drew him crazy. He kind of lost his sanity, because before he did this, he was more in touch with his human side. The moment he did that, he was just purely about taking down humanity. So that was kind of the first big thing. And you guys can see, as I flip through these pages, it is just page after page of spectacular art. And I when I first was looking at reading this format, I'd heard a lot about the absolute format, because I think the third volume was getting a printing at the time, and there was this one complaint about the fact that they were recoloring. They weren't keeping the true colors of the original printing. And after reading through this, I think I can actually understand why fans might be frustrated by this, because truly, this art is spectacular. And it's almost, I mean, like, it would kind of be disappointing to, open up the Swamp Thing and not get to experience, the original coloring and all that stuff. But ultimately, art is subjective. And I think that when it comes down to it, if recoloring shouldn't just be looked at like, oh, this is bad. It's also an opportunity to reimagine things, and that's why I don't think it's a bad thing. But I can definitely see why some people might have been a little frustrated by the concept, because this is just a classic run. The art in it is just, I honestly can't get over it. I've been reading books 1 through 3. The art has just been absolutely phenomenal. Alan Moore's writing spectacular. When it first started, it was like a little bit slower. It was more introducing what the Swamp Thing is, who Alec is, and then Alec comes to this realization that he himself might not be who he thinks he is. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but they kind of touch on that in the first book. And so you kind of just see him kind of like dealing with that, learning some new abilities that he has as he's part of the Green. And then towards the end of the first book, we start to see some more supernatural stuff. Like there's mention of like demons, even Etrigan even shows up in here, as we can see here. So like we get to see some of that, and at first you're like, okay, that's cool, but that ending, the ending to that arc was truly just setting up the next 2 books and what was to come even further in. So that's the first book. Excellent, must read. I honestly cannot believe I didn't pick this up sooner and start reading it. Alright, so now moving on to book 2. Once again, we've got another classic cover with Alan Moore's Swamp Thing on it. I believe, yeah, the description's the exact same on the back. Similar pricing, although I think it actually went up. Yeah, this one's 28 plus tax, and this one's 30 plus tax. Now keeping in mind, like I said, these values are actually basically meaningless now because I believe the hardcovers are out of print. So I'm probably going to have to get Volume 6 in softcover format. So as you can see, they kind of just dumped that whole really beautiful cover thing. They just put Swamp Thing in here. And like, yeah, it's kind of plain. I'm not going to lie. I was a little disappointed when I opened this up and that's what I saw, because like I was blown away by that first hardcover. So I don't know if those are just parts of different sets or if there was a crossover there, because I bought these used. But I honestly, when it comes down to it, the store is what we're here for. So yeah, but the format, hardcover, sturdy. I mean, I think this is a little boring, but it's not the most important thing. So we open up, and basically, the Swamp Thing has come to terms with what he is, or he's still he's getting closer to coming to terms with what he is. He's seeing his backstory, his really dark backstory, and he's kind of haunted by the ghosts of his past. Which is, I mean, if you were turned into a thing of grass and moss, wouldn't you be haunted by the concept? And we get introduced to this whole, there's a new kind of villain introduced as well, that has possessed. Well, it's not even new. It was a character from book 1. I didn't want to touch on because he wasn't that large. He was only kind of briefly brought up. But basically, the character or the villain, kind of possesses a character and tricks some of the characters that we've kind of learned or met into some pretty dark stuff. If I'm being completely honest, like this stuff got really messed up. And then suddenly there were people rising from the dead. Like this is very much like a horror theme. Like what? And basically we kind of figure out all this time the person who possessed, this likable character, this person that wasn't that likable, but he was more of just a character that we kind of learned a little bit about was possessed by Arcane. Arcane being, I guess, a classic villain from Swamp Thing. I mean, in the first book, they kind of start off kind of just briefly talking about how Swamp Thing had just defeated Arcane. But I don't think they touched too much on that afterwards. But basically, Arcane comes back, and then this is him kind of telling his tale about how when he got defeated by Swamp Thing, he was looking for a host, but he could never find anything until, of course, he did. So we get to see this whole little arc of Swamp Thing battling Arcane, um, which I thought was really cool. And there's even a part where we see the Swamp Thing delve into hell, which I think is just such an interesting concept. We also see a little bit of the Monitor, which surprised me. I mean, that was cool. I mean, it was good to see the kind of crossover between the universes, for sure. This art is just spectacular. I honestly don't even know how to describe it without fanboying on it. We get to see Deadman as well. Pretty cool stuff. We also get to see the Phantom Stranger, which was, it's good because they're starting to kind of tie into other parts of the universe. Oh, here we go. Look at this. We got another little cameo. Look how giant he is, and then like this little speck on the eyeball. That's the Swamp Thing and the Stranger. So the Spectre, who dares wake the Spectre? Classic character. So we're seeing all these darker sides of the DC universe. So I guess in this point it was more Vertigo. I'm not really sure when it crossed over, but I'm pretty sure Alan Moore's was just like Vertigo to begin with, if not the entire time. Still need some clarification on that. But essentially, this entire time, he's just kind of encountering all these weird supernatural anomalies. And he's just kind of like, okay, what is going on here? There's clearly something amiss. And then, out of nowhere, I'm not even sure, I think it's towards the end of this book when it happens. Oh, here's an interesting one. Here's when we get to see this girl who's crushing on Alec have a dream where she meets these two brothers, and the brothers say, okay, well, one brother can tell you a secret, one brother can tell you, I believe it was a mystery, and it turns out that these brothers are Cain and Abel, and so they're kind of just like set there, and she learns of the fact that Alec is not the first Swamp Thing, that there have been many before him. But when she wakes up from the dream, she can't remember, because that's how dreams work. So, we love to see it. But it's really beautiful, too, because at the end of this book, we get to see kind of this romantic unison between her, Abby, and the Swamp Thing. And it really, there's this beautiful, tons of, just long pages of her describing what the experience of getting in touch with the green is, and experiencing the green, and what that feels like. And so that's kind of where we end off, oh yeah, everything's looking good, everyone's happy now. But book 3, that's where things take a turn. This is where I'd say was the main climax of the book, at least, or the series from what I've read so far, where things get really interesting. Okay, so here we have book 3. We've got the sleeve, and that plain hardcover, unfortunately. But anyways, so yeah, this book kicks off right where that one ended. The Swamp Thing and Abby have now connected into unison, and that's beautiful. But now, things are coming out of nowhere. Things that really make no sense. We've got a guy who's got, a ton of radiation in him, and he's just walking around alive for some reason, and he's, killing people, but I don't think he even realizes it. So the Swamp Thing has to, encounters him, and he almost gets killed, and this is where the Swamp Thing learns about the fact that he can regrow himself as long as he enters the green and exits in a body. But he finds it challenging, too, because he doesn't want to lose himself in the green and become not just him, but just the green again. He doesn't want to lose himself. So that's where we see Alec finally almost kind of experience death. And it's wow, interesting stuff. And we see also, there's obviously something weird going on here. How can a guy who's been exposed to radiation like that be alive? And there's a really dark turn. But then we get introduced to the character of John Constantine. That's right, folks. John Constantine is in here. I mean, if anyone knows the series, I'm sure they'd be familiar with it. Oh my god, this was so weird reading. The Swamp Thing growing back. It's so weird. Oh my god. Here's some more. We get to see John Constantine, and then we also get to see stuff from Swamp Thing. And then, at a certain point, we even see vampires in an underwater city that, I guess in a previous run, the Swamp Thing had cleared out. But John Constantine explains, yeah, what about the ones hiding in the freezer? You didn't consider that, did you? And so then John kind of explains that something, we don't know what, but something is causing these supernatural anomalies to set a tone for when it arrives on Earth. And so for the rest of the book, we're kind of just seeing him go from location to location, dealing with all these different anomalies, whether it be vampires or ghosts, something along those lines of spirits. But the real kicker is that in the beginning of this, like in the middle of this book, we kind of see Alec disconnect a little bit. Because John Constantine hints at the fact that he knows more about Alec than he knows of himself. So basically, it's like, I know what you are. You don't even know what you are. You don't even know what you're able to do, but I know everything. And so we see Alec kind of disassociate from Abby for a little bit because he's like, I need to know this. Like, this is me. This is who I am. I can't just not know who I am. So he follows John Constantine around. Of course, John, being the dick he is, kind of just says, yeah, if you do these tasks with me, I'll tell you more about you. And he's kind of being a smartass about it and kind of just dragging the Swamp Thing along. And so eventually, Alec becomes content in that he's learning new things and he's able to travel more as well because he's able to regenerate his buddies faster. And he kind of reconnects it once again with Abby in the sense that now they're talking again and he's not really ignoring her, which I thought is good because, like, it'd be so unfortunate to see that entire arc in the second book of, like, the unison just be broken up because he's so self-absorbed with the concept of knowing himself, which is understandable, but don't throw away what you have because, after all, Abby is now part of you. So if you're trying to know more about yourself, don't lose the old parts of you, essentially. I think there's a lot of good philosophy in this book. More so, even, there's a lot of good art, storytelling, and it really keeps you on your toes. I find myself, when I open up this book, I just can't stop reading. So yeah, that is my review of the first half of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. I'm really excited to get into the second half. Probably going to be a bit of a delay on that because I still have to purchase the sixth book, so I don't want to start 4 or 5 before I've got the sixth book. I'll be doing a review on those at my earliest convenience. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and leave a comment down below if there's anything you would suggest that I should review in the future. I have some Omnis that I'm planning on reading. That's Teen Titans, we got Batman, we got Blackest Night. I know there's been some reviews, or not reviews, but requests for Blackest Night, so I'm going to do my best to get as much content out there as possible. I've just been so busy with work lately. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next one.